They still have this firm grip on power, the Dems, the commies, in their stronghold cities. But those cities, well, they're not enough for them to seize back power in D.C. on a federal level. And here's the point. They know that. They are now wounded animals, and therefore they are extremely dangerous. It's crystal clear the Dems are out of options. They've got these crazy whacked out ideas that, those got blown out of the water in November, and people are still blowing them out of the water. Overwhelming majorities say these dudes are crazy. A poll out yesterday shows that 60% of the people support Trump sending Marines and National Guards into L.A. to put down all of the riots. Of course they do. Should be actually more than that. They still have this firm grip on power, the Dems, the commies, in their stronghold cities. But those cities, well, they're not enough for them to seize back power in D.C. on a federal level. And here's the point. They know that. They are now wounded animals, and therefore they are extremely dangerous. As crazy as it sounds, they have now committed to violence. They are absolutely committed to it. People need to understand that, to achieve their goal. They'll burn down the country if they have to prevent the country from surviving. As I said yesterday, they not only hate America, they hate the idea of America even more. Trump essentially declared war on them a number of years back during his State of the Union address.
Today we proclaim that America will never be a socialist or communist country, and I'm going to add that word, or communist.
For Christian patriots, and especially Catholic patriots, we need to understand what's going on here from not just a political view, which is, of course, where it's all playing out, but from a theological view, not just a spiritual view, a theological view. Communism, Marxism, first appeared on the scene in the mid-19th century with Karl Marx's lethal notion of the state being supreme and not religion, not God. He rejects religion and God. He's an atheist. The material world's superiority over the immaterial world. That was the same time frame, remember, that Charles Darwin was promoting evolution, denying God. And Protestant seminaries in Germany, mostly Lutheran, were undermining the miracle accounts in sacred scripture. The 19th century was the rise of official atheism, which has advanced on such a large scale now in the intervening 200 years that atheism is actually somewhat ascendant. Just as atheistic communism was beginning to gain traction in Europe, two back-to-back popes appeared on the scene to provide the intellectual heft to help combat it. Popes Leo XIII, who reigned from 1878 to 1903, followed immediately by Pope St. Pius X, who reigned from 1903 to 1914, just shortly before the outbreak of the First World War. They each wrote and preached extensively about the dangers humanity would endure in the face of Marxist communists seizing governments to push a world without God. And you know what? Spot on. History proved them 100% right. Sometimes it's helpful to pull back from the weeds for us to step back, so to speak, from the tree to understand the forest. The riots in LA and the violence being planned and promoted across the nation for this weekend, the No King's Day protest, these are those kinds of moments. The Dems are wounded animals, possibly even heading to national extinction. And they have a sense of that. In their minds, they need to strike back in a lethal fashion. And that's what this weekend's No King's Day rallies, 1,500 protests all over the country, are about. They're looking and searching for someone they can create a cause around to sell the narrative that Trump's a dictator and his reign must end and everything we do is noble because he's, no matter how, he's Dr. Evil, he must be crushed. In the summer of 2020, they manufactured a victim in George Floyd. Well, that was just months before an election where they already knew the steel was in. Then they saw they had the advantage of waiting Trump out. But in a hat tip to the old saying, timing is everything, today there's no voting for another year and a half. So they're much more desperate these days as they watch Trump chewing them up on every level at a dizzying speed. They can't keep up. They're being pummeled. They're up against the rope. They're dropping to the mat. They know it. That's when they're dangerous. The only weapon they have left is violence and mayhem, and they're going to use it. They are using it. When push comes to shove, it's what the godless do. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.